With BONELAB releasing, you may want to brush up on the story of its prequel game, BONEWORKS. Maybe you only have a Quest and never played BONEWORKS, or maybe you're like everyone else and got to the end of BONEWORKS not knowing anything about the story because it made no sense. In any case, this video will present the full story and lore of BONEWORKS and some of Duck Season to prepare you for BONELAB. So I present to you the full story and lore of BONEWORKS as far as we understand it pre-BONELAB. Hey, what's this? A video. Who's in the video? Arthur Ford, the security director for a company called Monogon Industries. He's putting something in the computer with Gammon written on it. That's probably important. We'll come back to that later. He puts on a headset. The headset's heavily modified. This isn't your standard Quest 2 you buy at Walmart. In fact, you may notice that the headset also says Gammon on it. After putting on the headset, we load into this world as Arthur Ford. As part of his job as security director, he performs an anomalous material audit, marking materials for archival or incineration. Obviously, that's not how real cybersecurity works, but let's roll with it. But wait, what's this? It's that USB stick that he put into his computer. When we grab it, it disappears, which is kind of weird, but whatever. Let's take a break from our normal job and go to the break room. Wait, something weird just happened. We don't know what happened, but it was dramatic and it threw things around. This is probably related to that USB stick from earlier. We'll come back to that later, but for now, we leave our office and we find ourselves in the Museum of Technical Demonstration. Here we learn a lot of things about this world that we are in. We're in a world called MythOS. MythOS is a 3D operating system that's able to simulate infinite virtual spaces for individuals to live, work, and play. People in the real world will be able to access MythOS through VR headsets. It's supposed to be a literal metaverse where people can exist outside of reality. Currently, while you play through the story, MythOS is in development and it is close to being released to the public. MythOS is being developed by a company called Monogon Industries. In the museum, we can see a brief history of Monogon. Essentially, they started as a company in the 60s creating a tape player. They went on to develop more cassette tapes, then laserdisc readers, then game consoles, and even computers. Now they're involved in almost all industries, including health, food, and of course, VR entertainment. One notable creation from Monogon, besides VR headsets with virtual worlds, was the Poly system, a retro gaming system that several years ago competed with another company, Gammon. Remember that from earlier? Gammon was extremely successful with their game system called the Kingbit. A notable game from the Kingbit is Duck Season, which we get to see and learn more about in BONEWORKS' prequel game, Duck Season. Lots of the BONEWORKS lore and Easter eggs and history is in Duck Season, but the thing most relevant to BONEWORKS is the use of the Voidway and Void energy. The Voidway, or Void for short, is a mysterious alternate dimension that exists outside of space and time, and quantum void energy particles can exist in multiple places at once. The Voidway is home to cryptids, powerful beings that are usually malicious. We meet several cryptids in Duck Season, such as this cat clock and sock monkey. Wait, didn't we just see these two things back in the break room? That's interesting. Gammon discovered the Voidway and used its void energy to develop the game Duck Season. As part of the plot of Duck Season, you discover one copy of the game that's haunted by a cryptid from the Voidway in the form of a dog that tries to murder you. But that's not important to our story right now. What is important is that Kingbit was super successful with their game console, and Monogon, jealous of Gammon's success with the Kingbit, are suspected to have reversed engineered Duck Season and thus discovered the Voidway for themselves. After discovering the Voidway, they focused their research on applications for the Voidway. They ended up creating the BONEWORKS engine, which functions similar to a game engine like Unity or Unreal. BONEWORKS uses void energy to create the VoidMind AI, artificial intelligence capable of creating virtual spaces. With BONEWORKS as the foundational framework, Monogon Industries develops MythOS. To help simplify things, think of MythOS as a virtual metaverse world that you can visit with a VR headset. BONEWORKS is the engine or virtual framework that uses void energy, kind of like code, to create MythOS and other worlds. The game also makes it clear that Monogon is connecting people's minds directly to the void through the BONEWORKS backend, and it's this BONEWORKS backend that ensures that we resurrect in MythOS if we die in this metaverse. So with this, BONEWORKS serves two functions: to connect the void to MythOS in a safe and secure way, and to prevent users from accessing the void directly, because when that happens, you end up with a murderous dog killing everyone, including you and your family, like in Duck Season. It's important to note that Ford is the security director for BONEWORKS, and not for all of MythOS. Remember his first mundane task of sorting incoming materials? As a function of BONEWORKS, he's supposed to prevent void material from entering and infecting MythOS. As a security director, he's able to easily hack the BONEWORKS using that Gammon USB stick and Gammon headset. By activating that USB stick, he stops the time clock, locks everyone out of MythOS, and causes void energy to leak into the city. All of this occurs originally at 3:14, but then with an update of the game, it happens at 6:20. Well, Well, that was a lot of backstory out of the way, but now we can understand a little bit more about what Ford's goals are. So he brings in this virus, it takes effect, and it locks everyone out just as Ford enters the break room. All over this break room are messages scrawled all over the wall, written by Ford to himself. There's written messages all over MythOS, and we'll get into theories about who writes them and why later on, but these messages in the break room are 100% Ford writing to himself. Some of the writings tell us what his goals are: dying over and over without repercussions. What if immortality is possible? The Voidway could allow for immortality. It's obvious from these messages that Ford's goal is to achieve immortality by accessing the Voidway. Our minds are directly connected to the Void. BONEWORKS' backend is the only thing preventing true death. But how would you circumvent BONEWORKS and achieve immortality in the Void? Theoretically, if we could somehow stop the system clock, we could disconnect the resurrection field inside MythOS chambers. We could resurrect in the Void. So basically, step 1, stop the system clock. We've already done this with the Gammon USB stick. We've stopped the system clock, locked everyone out, and we've given ourselves a few hours to achieve our goal. Next, we need to disconnect the resurrection field. The resurrection field is part of the BONEWORKS engine and is what allows you, the player, to resurrect every time you die. You may notice that unlike other games, you don't respawn at a checkpoint and get to try again as if nothing happened. Instead, when you die, you respawn and the enemies you already killed, the things you've already done, are still done. This is because you're resurrecting and continuing where you died, with the events that happened in your previous life still having occurred. Because of this resurrection, it is believed that a lot of the messages written all over the world are messages that Ford wrote to himself after dying. Lots of the messages are tips or hints to help us on our journey, and so it makes sense for a previous life to leave behind messages as a guide to help us future Fords eventually become successful in this journey. Now, this is just a theory, and other messages in the world are obviously written by other beings, but that's just one theory regarding the effects of the resurrection field. So anyways, Ford believes that by disconnecting the resurrection field, you'll be able to resurrect in the Void and thus achieve immortality. He asks himself, if you die in the Voidway, do you die in real life? Everyone is too afraid to try. If you die in MythOS, you come back. That can't be good for our psyche. So he's going to try and do what everyone else is too afraid to try. He's going to access the Void and achieve immortality. And with this goal in mind, we set out. After leaving the Museum of Technical Demonstration, Ford finds himself in the city streets with null bodies lying all around. In the museum, we learned that null bodies are non-sentient workers for the city, created by the Void Mind AI. They're meant to be mindless laborers to build the city. When Ford initiated the lockdown of MythOS, the null bodies were put into hibernation, but by mysterious means, they seem to be gaining sentience, and Ford has to defend himself from them. At the same time, omni-projectors are appearing and attacking sentient null bodies. Omni-projectors are essentially an antivirus dispatched by a security firm called Saber Lake. You may recognize Saber Lake's logo from this briefcase that Ford had in the beginning cutscene. We'll see more about Saber Lake later. Anyways, the omni-projectors are there to destroy all anomalies in MythOS, including Ford himself. Other NPCs found in the streets are crablets, which are a VR headset trying to force themselves onto Ford while damaging his health. They want to immerse us even more into this world by putting us into a VR world within a VR world. We also see null rats running around, but these are harmless creatures that appear to simply observe us. But they're considered a corruption since the omni-projectors attack them as well. Hey, look at that, that's some pretty looking colors, but don't touch it. That is void energy leaking into the city. Oh hey, a video transmission from some random dude. Apparently his name is Hayes, and I wonder what he wants.
Yo, Arthur, over here. How are you still in the city? The board's calling an emergency meeting for all Monogon employees. All of MythOS is on lockdown. It's crazy over here. I have no idea how you weren't kicked. Like, nobody else can log in. The system clock being frozen might have something to do with it. So if you can make your way to the core tower, you might be able to manually restart it and let us back in.
He obviously doesn't know that it was Ford that started the lockdown in the first place. Oh hey, there's a Ford at the end of the hallway mysteriously throwing us a gun and then closing the door. I wonder what that could be. Now, this isn't the only clone of Ford that we're going to run into playing this game. While lots of theories exist on how there can be multiple clones of Ford, the true reason isn't clear yet. It could be that Ford is traveling back in time and encountering versions of himself, or it could be that the Void, which exists outside of space and time, is connecting multiple realities together, causing a multiverse Rick and Morty situation. But again, these are all just theories. All we know is that we see this Ford, he gives us a gun, and let's just accept it and move on. From the streets, we make our way to Runoff, where we go through more puzzles and killing lots of enemies. Here's a big sign saying melons over here. These kind of signs appear to be written by null bodies who have a weird obsession with melons, and specifically a drink made from melons called Melon Belly. In fact, it's this Melon Belly that's corrupting the null bodies and making them sentient. Along with messages about Melon Belly, we see other messages that say things like down with Monogon, burn it all down, etc. These appear to be messages written by the null bodies that have gained sentience and realized that Mythos is their prison and that they want out. By some more signs promoting Melon Belly, we see a new enemy known as zombies or Ford Early Exit. Based on the Cure game mode, these appear to be versions of Ford that have been heavily corrupted. This is evidenced by the end of the Cure game mode, where all of the zombie Fords are turned back into normal Fords after being cured. One possible source of this corruption or disease is their addiction to Melon Belly, which is already known to corrupt null bodies. This is further backed up by the fact that we usually see lots of Melon Belly anytime you run into a large group of these zombie Fords. In any case, they're trying to kill us, so let's not let them do that. Next, we find ourselves in the sewers. Oh hey, another TV with a mysterious messenger. This time, it's BONEWORKS encryption specialist, Alora.
You're heading to the tower to reset. I've been obsessing over the possibility for weeks, and you acted on it first. I couldn't let you think you were the only one who saw it. Just leave a way for others to get in. That's all I'm asking for our contributions. Leave a way in.
She thinks she knows our plan, and I'm not sure what contributions she made, but whatever, let's just keep going. Down in the sewers is the main manufacturing point for all of the Melon Belly in Mythos, and here you'll find yellow Nullmen that have been drinking a ton of Melon Belly and thus have gotten more corrupted. From a clipboard, we learn that a mysterious group called the Lava Gang are taunting the BONEWORKS creators by telling them that it was the Lava Gang that taught null bodies how to ferment melons with void energy, thus causing their sentience and corruption. Outside of this fact, not much is known about the Lava Gang. Supposedly, they reside in the void and have an unparalleled understanding of it. They use this knowledge to wreak havoc on many realities, like they're doing in Mythos by giving the null bodies Melon Belly. After leaving the sewers, we find ourselves in a warehouse greeted by Hayes again.
Hey, so everyone's kind of freaking out over here. There's a rumor from security that somebody broke into the complex and coordinated a breach in Myth. I don't know why, or who would even know how, but I think it's an inside job. I mean, these Saber Lake private security guys are not to be trusted. So once we reset the clock, we'll be able to get a better picture of what's going on.
Hayes still doesn't know who caused the virus, but he doesn't trust a group called Saber Lake Security. Remember them from earlier? Moving on, we make our way through the warehouse and we get to Central Station. We're almost to the time tower. Here in Central Station, Alora speaks to us again.
The reset is a beacon. Monogon will locate you within minutes. What can you accomplish in minutes? Unless you aren't concerned with them finding you post-reset. Leave a way in. You can't keep this for yourself. This is all of ours.
She realizes how far we're willing to go, and she's realized that Ford is okay with his real body dying once he's accessed the void and achieved immortality. After moving through Central Station, we find ourselves finally at the bottom of the tower, and somehow we gotta get to the top. Along the way, lots of Omni projectors and zombie Fords try to stop us, but we make our way through them. And here, for some reason, a bunch of VR junkie Fords are having a rave. This must be what Ford turns into if he lets the Crablets take control of him. Oh, and here's a reference to Stress Level Zero's first game, Hover Junkers. And here's our friend Hayes again.
Okay, so little update. We can see what's going on, and something is definitely controlling the Nullmen. They're pulling gravity cores from the system clock, maybe to open some kind of void gate. I don't know, but all I know is that this is super dangerous. So good luck, man.
Wow, that's a lot of words. I guess the Nullmen are trying to access the void, probably because of the melon drinks that they've been having way too much of. So finally we reach the top of the time tower and see the core of the system clock that we're supposed to destroy. A couple cultish null bodies are worshipping the void entity in the shape of a pyramid. This seems to be different from the void leaks that we've seen before. It's all organized into a perfect shape. This must be where MythOS is getting all of its power. While fighting off a bunch of enemies, we destroy the giant time core and we are transported to a mysterious hallway. At the end of this hallway, there's a mysterious void entity, and if you've been paying attention, he's popped up all over the game, kind of like a bootleg G-Man. We aren't entirely sure who these void entities are or what their goal is. They just observe us and run away before we can get close to them. Behind the void entity is a door, and if you played Duck Season, you'll recognize this door and the handle. Let's go through the door because, you know, why not? Moving through the door, we see a video of our virtual version of Ford waking up in the same room where he first put on his VR headset. At the same time, we see the real life Ford apparently knocked out with the headset still on his head. Our virtual Ford grabs the crowbar with the force grab, and it's unclear if he's in a virtual version of the room or if virtual Ford is now existing in reality. It's not really sure what's happening, but the theory is that it appears that here Ford has broken free from MythOS. He's become a separate entity from his physical body. We haven't quite gotten to the void yet, but we've left MythOS and we've entered the BONEWORKS engine. And now with direct access to BONEWORKS, we can finally access the void. Remember from earlier that the BONEWORKS engine acts as a medium between the void and MythOS. BONEWORKS is preventing true access to the void, and by putting on this VR headset, Ford is entering the BONEWORKS and continuing his journey to the void. We wake up in a dungeon in Fantasyland. Fantasyland is another project developed by Stress Level Zero using the BONEWORKS engine. And yes, Stress Level Zero exists in their own universe. Fantasyland is an unfinished game, which is why parts of the game look obviously unfinished. It has a medieval theme and it's populated by dozens, maybe hundreds of other Fords. But these Fords appear to be empty, as if they've lost a part of themselves. One theory is that these Fords have succeeded at reaching the void, where their mind has left them to enter the void, leaving behind this shell of a body. This would explain why this Ford staring at us is so dumb. He's so dumb he can't even move until he sees us move and he starts copying our actions. We have to teach him to move and walk, and then he helps us to escape. Melon Belly could be having a small influence here on these Fords as well, as we can find one bottle of Melon Belly in the castle in Fantasyland. But without a full Melon Belly operation here, they don't have access to enough of the stuff to become the zombie Fords. So anyways, we use the stupid Ford to help us escape. The Ford King challenges us to a fight in the fantasy arena to win an audience with him, and after surviving these challenges, we make our way to the castle, which has a lot of interesting artwork. The stained glass appears to show Ford's journey to the void and the construction of this castle. Any pictures showing our Ford are adorned with a halo, and the most interesting panel depicts the system clock being destroyed with other Fords worshipping this moment. In the castle, the king challenges us to a fist fight, and long story short, we beat the living pulp out of the king, take his crown, and all of the other Fords are ecstatic that we are now their king. But we aren't here to become the king of Fantasyland. We're here to make the final jump into the void and achieve immortality. Behind the throne room, we see a secret room where Hayes contacts us again.
Dude, they found you in the old offices. I mean, like the physical world version of you. How are you even still in there? That doesn't even make any sense. I mean, technically, look, you gotta get out of there right now.
As Alora predicted, destroying the system clock allowed Saberlake to find our real-life bodies. This means that we need to hurry. Unlike MythOS, which keeps itself separate from the void and only connects people's minds to the void, Duck Season and now Fantasyland are both games that are constructed directly from void matter. This is why Fantasyland has this chamber with direct access to the void. In this room, we see lots of written messages warning us against entering the void. We honestly have no idea who's writing these messages to us. They're warning us to stop and to not go any further. It is possible that a version of Ford has already succeeded at reaching the void, and these messages are his attempt to prevent other Fords from making the same mistake. But you know what? Let's just ignore that completely and let's just go on. As we look for a way to open this hole, Alora contacts us one more time, showing us that she found the USB stick that we used to hack in the system and start the whole lockdown. To open the gate, we need to use this gravity manipulator, and next to it is a message with this mysterious symbol of X. This symbol has popped up elsewhere in the game with messages helping us. It also appears in Duck Season. X seems to be an entity from the Void who is trying to help us, the player, in both games. And here he seems to have provided us with the very tool that we need to get access to the Void once and for all. But at the same time, sitting next to this tool is the monkey cryptid from Duck Season. This cryptid is meant to represent misdirection. Is it him that's writing these messages telling us to turn back? Or could it be him facilitating the journey to the Void, pretending to be X and helping us? Or has he been X all along? Regardless, we open the gate and we enter the Void. The consensus is that crossing into this hole is the moment that Ford's real body dies and his mind enters the Void. Here you have to fight off lots of enemies, including one new one called the King Crab. Fighting these off, we make our way to Chamber 2 off in the distance. And here in the top of Chamber 2, we get to observe the real-life Ford being ambushed by Saber Lake agents. We see the crowbar sitting there, confirming that this Ford is not the same one we saw earlier after destroying the system clock, since that Ford picked up the crowbar and put on a headset. We see Saber Lake agents break into the room along with a mysterious man with a hidden face. He waves towards the Void entities that are in the room, then he turns, cocks his gun, and shoots Ford's lifeless body. And with that, you're now ready to play BONELAB. I want to note that I left out an Easter egg from Duck Season that people used to think hinted at Stress Level Zero's next 3 games. Essentially, there's a section of the game where you come across 3 doors, the first being the BONEWORKS door that we encountered earlier, next being a door titled Dead FM, and then one titled Machine King. Originally, these were thought to be the next 3 titles from the company, but obviously the next game releasing is called BONELAB, not Dead FM. That said, BONELAB could still have something to do with this door, and specifically the cat clock cryptid from Duck Season, which appears to have walked through that door. My guess is that these 3 doors don't refer to 3 games, but instead refer to 3 different things that are important to this universe. The BONEWORKS door is in reference to the BONEWORKS engine, and not to BONEWORKS the game specifically, and so Dead FM and the Machine King must be references to other important plot points and not games themselves. But outside of these suspicions, we have no more knowledge on these 3 doors, the cryptid, or even the fate of Arthur Ford. We know that Arthur Ford will make an appearance in BONELAB, and so hopefully we'll see more of his story and learn more of this universe. I want to thank the entire BONEWORKS lore community for deciphering the story, the Easter eggs, and all of this. I especially want to thank Greased Scotsman, as his videos on the BONEWORKS lore were a huge source of knowledge while preparing for this video. I encourage everyone to go check out his 4 videos on BONEWORKS if you'd like to have a more in-depth understanding of everything that goes on in these games. And if you'd like to see a follow-up to this video on the lore and story in BONELAB, then subscribe and let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching.